Okay, so this is a follow-up from my other clip that I was going to do another clip on, and I just have to be in a certain head space for it, and I'm in a nice bad mood today, so today's perfect. The thing I wanted to talk about was this write-up from, uh, I think it's Gianna, or Jenna Jorgensen, if I'm butchering your name, sorry. um, and this is kind of a compiled the history of government targeting women. And it was funny because I was going through, I don't know if it was a case, or I was going through something, and it had a little piece in it talking about how they um, kept testing women for STDs and targeting women, and they never tested men, and da 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 da, right? And this is currently still going on. So I was like, I wish, I can find like this whole thing on all that, and I was never able to find it. And so they talk about how there really isn't anything fully written up on it, except for there's a guy that wrote a book, right? So I was gonna try to get that book eventually because I have some major interest in that. And I was like, in history, we talked about how in history class, like, it was so, I hated history because there's just about all these white men who did all this stuff, and then all the pictures in the room were all these men. There was no women. They may have, like, mentioned, one or two women. Like, there was, like, nothing, and it was so boring, and it just, the history was so whitewashed, right? So we didn't even learn about black history or anything about women's history in general. And that's how our schools taught us. So coming out of that, a lot of people come out ignorant to it. And then plus some of the history is not even true that they taught us. So um, that, I know that things would have changed if history classes were more diverse, and I think more women would have been into that versus just a bunch of guys like pandering to themselves. That was basically what it was about growing up. How it is today, I'm pretty sure this is not included in there still. I don't know how they are with Black History today. I hope that they have that incorporated versus what happened to us when we were younger. And mind you, our school had like maybe, I think I went and I counted like how many black students there were. I think we had like 12, like something like that. Like there was hardly any. But the our good friends were, and so I had a little bit of something, but it wasn't like they sat down and started speaking history to me. Like they did like talk about Motown and kind of got me into some of that stuff. I remember that. I don't remember. They would mention things once in a while, like there was this whole incident where we got a dog named Sambo, right? We didn't name the dog Sambo. The dog's name was Sambo when my dad got it, and we didn't understand the history of that word. And then there was also a restaurant where they actually went to called Sambo's. So there was this whole thing about it, and I just remember distinctively our friend's dad just being at the, we were just eating. I remember we were eating, and he would just like kind of put his head down, like, oh man, like he would do that. He wouldn't say anything, or if he did, he would let you know that something was wrong, but he just didn't like. I don't know if he went into the history of that. I think he may have said something like, this is like totally like racist or something, and then like we didn't understand why. Like there was this like whole thing. I mean, we're talking about when I was a little kid, and so the son, like we had talked about the son before, did the movie and stuff, and I think it was very heavily into like the history of racism and stuff like that. But I don't recall them ever like really sitting down and having this type of discussion on things into any major details or anything. And so So we kind of lacked a little bit of that growing up, and like I said, I hope today it's a little different to where um, they are having, this type of teaching now on both levels. Excuse me, on both these things, on the women's issues and the racial issues. This is all pretty much all tied together in various ways, and so if they're teaching that, they must teach this. And we tend to get ignored, and so it of course it always targets like the most um targeted in America, like, black women too. So, and we have LGBTQ involved in this sort of thing here that we're gonna get into, but I don't even know what I'm gonna say about it. I was gonna run down why it's still going on and why we need to be aware of it, and that we need to stop it because people are just fueling it by things within policies and then actually not realizing it, that we were basically set up to fail from the beginning, from the very beginning, and it has nothing to do with you or you not working hard enough or doing any of these other things. These were things that we were trying to piece together when I got out of school at a very, very early age, because they said I was dumb and then I wasn't and all this bullshit. But anyway, um, so yeah, we had to fight against that too. Our whole, like, the whole IQ thing and all that shit, and I'm stupid and da 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 da, and boys are always smarter, and they would constantly, like, praise my brother and trash me, and it wouldn't matter if I got like a 4.0 in the midterm thing, and they would be like, wow, you need to do it again. It's like, yeah, but I'm doing 2 years of school in 1 year versus my brother, and I'm passing. So, yeah, there's really no comparison between me and that. But this is the sexism that was going on, and, yeah, from my family too. So, um, because the whole idea that I wanted to do something by my own choice, really pissed people off. It was like, nobody was trying to dictate what my brother did. He could choose whatever the fuck he wanted to do, and nobody cared. So I chose a different career path, and it was a new thing that they had brought in. I don't know how long. I don't know how long they had that, but they implemented this thing, and you based your classes all around your career, right? So if you didn't know what you wanted to be, then you would just generally pick a whole bunch of different things to try to sort that out, right? They were trying to get us prepared and ready before you got out of school, and then if you were going to go into college, which I was already in college before I went out of school, but I wasn't planning on actually continuing college because I didn't need it for the stuff that I was doing. So everything is based around that. But then it prepares you also if you're going to go into college, then you have some idea, so you're not just kind of like floating out there going, I don't know what I want to do. But some people, apparently some people, they don't figure it out until many years later. And then also there are people like, let's say me, where we went and did this whole thing, and then, life happens because they didn't teach us anything about how we're limited, for anything, and other bad things happen, and that the government targets us, which is not a conspiracy. So that's why I was bringing this up, because you have to go through the history of stuff to understand how this happened. But so what was I saying? I kind of lost my train of thought there, but yeah, so, oh no, we weren't prepared for that because I was always taught, like, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I wanted to start businesses. I wanted to, besides my music, I was hoping to do my music, and then I wanted to start some businesses, and at the time I wanted to do charities and stuff. I don't want to even get involved with charities anymore, but but I had all these like plans, right? So I had like all this on the table, and the first thing I wanted to do was buy a house. So like the very, very first thing I wanted to do was buy a house. Well, I know I was going to be set up to where I was never going to be able to buy one. So, and how that happened was systematically. I mean, it was already set against me to be able to do that. And it's funny because my brother made less, and he was able to get home very early. And so I was like, okay, this is some fucking bullshit going on here. I couldn't figure it out. So this is me in my younger years. I'm trying to sort this out, going, I don't fucking get this. I don't fucking get this, dude. I'm like literally busting my ass off, and I have to sit there and pay double or even more than double in bills than my brother had to pay. And a lot of people don't discuss their money stuff, and so nobody knew, like, you're just paying stuff. And there was a lot of women who still were not very independent at that time, so it was like they would either stay at home and live with their parents, or they were in college dorms, or in places where they had to share rooms with other people, and then and married, right, or with their boyfriends. So they were not they didn't there was a lot of women who didn't feel um reality, in the sense of like how much is against you until you actually like have to go do it yourself. So that's what happened. And so there was a lot of women that were always like trashing me and stuff, and like, why do you have this problem, why do you have that, and they're all living with their boyfriends and shit, and like not even, it was so ignorant. Like, I mean, and this is not even that long ago, and they still act like this. I'm like, yeah, but you got your boyfriend there, and you're bringing in two things of income here, and he doesn't even work or whatever, and he's getting like I'm not disability or some bullshit. I'm like, that's free money for you right there. So you don't even have to work to get that amount of money, and so that's an additional figure this is additional $800 on top of what you make and between two people. And it's like, yes, it is so much easier because a place is going to sit there and take you over someone like me, who, even, let's say I even make the same amount as them together, right, they will take them over me. So that's why I'm saying, it's like, I don't people cannot comprehend like how that works. And a lot of it is individual discriminations too, because of the way that they feel how women are versus, oh well, they're a cute couple, whatever, they're married or whatever the bullshit is. Like, they have this sort of sense of like, oh, there's a family, so they're obviously more wholesome than this girl who's like by herself, like, who probably can't do this or that or this or that. And then I end up paying like 3 times, this is no joke, 3 times the amount of rent that those people. And so it was set up really against me from the start because you couldn't get around it. And I mean, to think that the guy that used the fucking predator that was working with Alice, right, was paying less than me. And I'm just like, okay, see, this is where the problem is, because this shouldn't even be happening. And there's just but I've been trying to figure out what was going on. So then the other part of this is the doctor stuff. Okay, the doctor stuff is the scariest thing, because we have been having these issues with the doctor thing for a long time. So we were kind of gaslit into thinking that we had to go every year, right, for all these like fucking women tests and shit. And no, they literally told us this from day one. And so, and then also on top of that, you don't have women even talking about that stuff. So you don't question it, and maybe some others did, but even still, that wasn't the right information. So then I'm sitting here paying out of pocket because they wouldn't give me my insurance after I stopped working for the healthcare, right? And the other company. So I had insurances through those companies when I was working with them. So when I stopped working with them, then I had no medical. Like, they just took it away. And then I had to actually pay out of pocket to even go in to do these tests. And it was so important for me to do these tests because one of our, I talked about it on the other clip, but one of our boss's daughters got, she got, I think it was cervical cancer, right? So when that happened, she was only like 19 or 20. And I was like, oh my God, like, I want to make sure I get my test done, like, when I'm supposed to get them done, right? So it kept me on my, to keep up with that, because I was like, out of anything I get checked, I was like, that's going to be the number one thing I continually get checked, like, on the norm, because that kind of freaked me out, because, I mean, that was my experience with that. I was like, somebody like as young as me got that. So yeah, and the doctors kept saying you have to come in every year. So I'd pay out of pocket, and it would be like somewhere in between like 75 $100 to go do these tests. And then they started like having me come back in and stuff, and I'm like, why? Like, I'm not even doing anything. Like, there's this whole period. I'm not going to get into my major medical history here, but they were doing that, and I was like, okay, I don't even know what's going on. So I would go in and they're like, everything's fine, it's cool. So then they made some more money, right? So they made a profit off me doing that. And see, it wasn't under any medical insurance, so they were just getting cash out of pocket, right? So then what started, and I don't remember when it began, but they started this whole like STD test thing, right? And so they kept trying to push STDs tests, and I would just go in there for, say, like, let's say I went in there for the flu, and they'd want to push for an STD test. I'm like, that's weird. Like, what the fuck? And I would just do it because everybody's like, you got to do what the doctor tells you, right? So this is another thing, like the cop thing, right? They do what the cops tell you, and they're all fucking misconducting all over the place. Excuse me. And so we we would do these tests and submit these tests, and there's never anything on it, right? So um then it happened, and it's been going on. It's still going on. Like, it's still going on. And then this very bad procedure. Oh my god. So what happened was, I'm gonna actually explain what happened first, and then go into the story. So when women get like the cervical test, right? So they have to specifically put a date when you go, and you have to make sure it's long after your period, right? So otherwise it'll come back negative, or it'll come back kind of peculiar. And so what happened was, I'm such an idiot, because like I didn't even understand like how long you had to wait after. Like, you think you're done, but you're really not, type of thing. And I would just submit to these tests, right? Like, just whenever. Like, I didn't even put any thought to it, and so it would come back kind of funny, right? So they were kind of going, oh, you probably have this, and I'm like, how would I even have this? Like, unless the rapist had that, right? Or something, because that was the only time that any weird thing like that could have even occurred. Like, it's almost like a Jesus child, right? To me. So I'm like, okay. And so, they go and they fucking do this horrible procedure of going up into me and taking out a portion, like they had to do a biopsy thing, right? But at least the good part of that, I mean, there's no good in this, but I mean, the good part of that was it proved that there was nothing wrong, right? So they did that, and then they go and they continually explain, oh, if you come in too early, the test will come back like that. I was like, oh, so after all these years, nobody explained this to me properly, like how long to wait, because it varies from person to person, right? So then they, before they even had the wait, how did this go? So then after they did that test, the lady on the phone tells me I had something, right, that I didn't have. And I'm like, what in the fucking hell is going on here? I haven't even done any, like, there's been nothing going on in this time period, right? So I'm like, okay, either you guys did it to me, or I don't know what the fuck. So then I ended up having to talk to like the main people there, and they're like, no, that's not true, and who told you that? And then I tell them, the girl that answered the phone, they're like, no, that is completely. So like, I was all panicking, and like I was like, what is going on here? And then after that, they didn't even say like, oh, you then just wait every 3 years, right? They didn't say any of that. Then I got some other information, and this other information really fucking pissed me off. So then they go like this. This is like after they figured that I didn't have any of that stuff. They go, yeah, well, government assumes that every woman has HPV, and that they do not test guys, and they're not going to test guys. They just don't do it. They don't have tests for it, and then also that because of that, they don't give adult women the vaccine for it, because they assume that everybody already has it. So they give it to young teens, because they feel that they don't have it, because obviously teens don't have like unprotected sex or anything like that. So I was like, excuse me, what the fuck? So this information was given to me about, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago. And so then, but I didn't know what to do with that information because it's like, that is like highly sexist. Like, there's a whole lot of bad things in that. And then on top of that, it's like the way that I viewed it at the time was like the medical community was just getting free money off me because I was like, they keep having me come in and trying to like make up all these things and do these tests, and then at the end of the day, there's like nothing there, right? And then it's just like a matter of communication because they cannot talk about um women's health issues or any type of thing like that. They just randomly will say something like, if you don't do this, you're gonna have like problems in the future. And I go, well, so how do I correct, like, how do I not have these problems? And then they won't answer. Like, they'll literally walk out of the room, and I'm just like, okay, you're in this field and you cannot talk. Like, what the hell? You can't be conservative in this field. So, then, dude, it's just been a complete nightmare. Like, that stuff, like, traumatized me so bad, and I was just like, okay, I cannot deal with this shit. So then they fucked up this whole other thing. There's like a whole medical like disaster thing that I've been dealing with all these people, but then later they go, oh, they kept bugging me for the fucking test again, right? So then I go in, not even for this test. So I go in to see the doctor out in Riverside because of my arm tore. And so we already did a clip on that whole incident. But again, in that incident where I went to go get my arm checked, they demanded a fucking pap, and she was gonna do it right there. She tried to pull down my pants, okay? So that situation happened. And then they demanded an STD test. I go, I'm here for my fucking arm, dude. My arm is fucking torn. What the hell does this have to do with anything? So then, okay, fast forward. So then I come out here to where I'm at now, and I had this skin thing, right? And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm having problems. Like, I can't drop my weight. I don't know what's going on, and so some inflammation thing was happening, I guess, but we didn't know at the time, and we didn't know why. And I go in there, and they treat it like, oh, I just have like dry skin or something, and fucking my weight thing is just my own problem or something. I don't know the way that they acted about it, and I was like, no, like, actually, like, track my shit, and this is not right because I shouldn't even be gaining weight, number one, and two, I can't drop it, and so it means there's something wrong. So I gave them this information in, together with the other thing, and then they just brushed it off, and I go, dude, it's all over me now. Like, it was just like a matter of weeks, and then they kept giving me vaccines and shit. Like, they gave me like 7, 10 vaccines, whatever it was, in this short amount of time. And I'm like, yeah, well, I don't know what the fuck is going on, but I shouldn't have any type of thing at all, and I can't be allergic to my stuff because I've lived with my stuff for years, decade, well, like over a decade. Like, there's nothing really new here other than the place itself and the carpet, which they kind of thought maybe it's the carpet. It could be. I mean, they don't know yet, but they're gonna do tests. But anyway, what it led to me having to get onto steroids. They had to give me major steroids because my whole body was inflamed. They couldn't even do tests on me. So I'm like, how did it end up here? Like, we shouldn't even have had to be on that. And that shit fucked my crap up. Oh my god. I had to take it for 2 weeks. And then I got the moon face and all that shit. And it just messed me up. And the doctor didn't even tell me that was going to happen. Like, I didn't know anything about taking that. Did it make the skin thing go away? Yeah. Made everything go away, including my pigment, man. I was like white as a ghost by the end of that shit. But, so then I had to change doctors because to get this treatment because they didn't do anything right. They let it take over my entire body, and I'm like, what the living fuck? So then I get a new doctor, and here the new doctor. I just told them I already had the test. They demanded the STD test too over at this place. before I change. So I gave it to him, right? I'm like, I don't even need to do this test. I already did it. There's nothing fucking there, dude. Why are they bothering me for this? So then I go to the new doctor, and the new doctor is texting me to get this test done again. I'm like, this is insane, dude. I had told every single one of them, I have already done this shit. What is the obsession with my vagina? You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck is going on here? So, like, I've never been able to, like, talk about it, but I didn't even know what it was about, though. So then I read this whole thing, right? And I'm like, okay, now it's kind of coming together a little bit, because I'm like, this is just seemed wacky. Like, I'm just like, I don't understand it. I was like, are they trying? They're just trying to get free money from me. They're doing unnecessary treatments and tests. They're not doing the tests that they were supposed to be doing, because I was supposed to have an MRI done 2 years ago because of my incident that happened in 2005. 2005, okay. And thankfully, I mean, obviously I don't have a brain tumor, because I think I would be dead by now by the time that they even fucking got around to shit. But yeah, they were supposed to be doing that. I was supposed to continue my arm treatment. They didn't do that. There's a whole bunch of other things they haven't done. And I'm just like, why do I even go in here? What are they getting paid for? And then they'll sit there and brush shit off, and then it took over my whole body, where I could have fucking ended up in the ER. I almost went to the ER, but the problem is when I get something that is a specialized thing, like a skin thing, right? The ER never treats you. Like, it's kind of like, here's something temporary, go the fuck away. And so it's kind of almost pointless to go in there for something like that when they don't treat it specifically. So we've had multiple occasions of that where they just fuck shit off, and then something bad happens to me. But so in this thing, America had this thing called I guess the American Plan, and it became law. And so they basically were targeting women and trying to imprison them and force STD tests all the time. So a lot of the stuff is still going on. Not that they're arresting them, but during the AIDS epidemic and stuff, there was stuff, and this kind of ties into all of that stuff too. And it's pretty gross. The history of this is so gross that it's like, oh yeah, let me see a school teach this. Like, this is just real stuff that they will not teach. Oh well, the American government's like a targeting women. Well, they just did by signing off this Estafasta thing, because that's straight up what this bullshit's about. So they have continually done that. So what needs to be done is we need protections, because this should not even be going on in 2019. We're almost in 2020, and our government is still targeting us and then forcing STD tests and shit. And it's like, excuse me. And then assuming that every single woman has an STD, and I'm just like, and men don't have to get tested. I'm like, that is some fucking shit right there. But so then what they did was, um, it it's oh, they would let, like, where is it? The STD. Yeah, so a lot of this stuff goes way, way back, and they would let people get STDs and then not treat them, and particularly black folks, that they would just let them get it, and then they would just see what it did to them and not treat them, and just watch them, whatever happened to them. It's very, like, I'm sure in Black history that's in there, that specific thing, because I know that I've read that. But to the extent, like, the whole history of this, like, it needs to be like in a docu-series, into a movie or something. It needs to be done. And there is no conspiracies here. It just, this is what they've been doing. And oh, so then also with the test thing, they started telling me, she's like, who told you you have to come every year? Did something do this and that? And I was like, no, we were always told that. We were told that since a kid. And then she's like, no, every 3 years. You don't even have to come in here for a long time. Not even, maybe, I think it was like even 5 years. And I'm like, what? I'm like, why did this just now being told to me? Why is it just now being told to me? And then they tried to sit there and be like, oh no, we think that maybe your thing came back. I go, no, I actually had to go under treatment for them to fucking check that shit. And I was like, and then look, they found nothing, absolutely nothing. It's on fucking documents. So, I actually have proof to back it. This isn't exactly a story that I want to blast out to the entire world, but I have to because people need to know the major abuses that have been done to me through doctors and apparently through government, because government's the one that's trying to demand all this shit. And so, and a medical professional told me what the government said and their viewpoints on this, and I'm like, what the living fuck? Like, you get thrown this like weird information out, and I will ask a million questions. So I mean, it has to probably do more with me and me trying to like sift, I don't even know the word for it, trying to sift through what is going on, because when something's not right, I have to question it. I mean, I would think that other people would too, but they don't. They just don't. And or maybe I just got lucky and I finally had somebody spill the beans on something that I've been trying to figure out for a long time. But again, we had no idea where that was coming from, like what that meant. And and I used to work in the medical field, so I was like, I'm around like all this stuff where I'm going through files and patient files and billings and things like that, but there was nothing there that would um indicate anything to me at an early age, right? So I wasn't like actually at a hospital, so I was dealing with all their medical filings and stuff, right? So that I was just like, I don't even understand this. So then okay, so then there was this moral panic, right? You have to kind of read through this because I'm probably not going to go through all of it. I just wanted to bring it up and send you guys on your way to read these three pieces, because there's three write-ups so far. I got to look again, but um it kind of blows my mind, because it's like, okay, there's been so many problems that it's like you sit there and you think like, okay, what is going on, and nobody's giving you an answer to it, and all this fucked up shit keeps happening to you, and you're just like, okay, I need somebody to fucking step into this, because I don't know what this is about. But then they wrote these pieces, and I was just like, oh, thank God. I was like, thank God, because it answers the riddle of at least the doctor part of things. We know that the other stuff is very and maybe all of it is very Christian fundamentalist driven. It is very, the tone and very racial, like racist, like just this deep yuckiness um that people think that being a white person you are not going to feel. Oh no, oh no, you're feeling it, and mostly if you fall into the lower classes, and then or anything that they deem is evil, um those are the people that get dragged right into this crap. And so it's a combination of all that. So that's why I was like, in a lot of these things, when people were talking, they're like, yeah, but you don't have it as bad as us. I'm like, no, I don't think you know our story very well, because there are things that happen to me that I don't even know of anybody else of it happening to. Like, just due to a combination of things, maybe also because of my parent thing, I don't know, but also because I was a woman alone, right? So I didn't move out of my house and go marry some guy, so I wasn't with some guy around to like save my ass, which that should never be a thing anyway. But they found ways to target me, and they would continually do it, and they would just make shit up. They would just make shit up all the time. And then, today, like, they're getting they're on the hot plate. I'm like, they're on the hot plate now. That they have to be transparent with their police stuff. Do I think that's actually gonna happen? No. No, I think it's just kind of like a lip service to the public to make you think that people are gonna now all of a sudden be honest about something, where as you see, if you actually been following the media, which apparently nobody does, because I'll bring this stuff up to people and they're like, "What? I don't know anything about that." Um, they don't know anything about Sesta Foster. They don't know anything about the police stuff. They don't know anything about nothing, like literally nothing. And I'm like, okay, well, we cannot even have a discussion because you don't know what's going on in the world. So right now they're like burning files, right? So they're basically trying to get rid of like all the misconduct stuff and all the everything. There's probably a million things mixed up into that are way beyond my stuff, like way beyond. So such as like the police shooting stuff, like any reasons or people that they let off for killing somebody on a stop or something, like. And then there was like massive corrupt. There's been massive corruption, like that's never ended, but there was like massive corruption in the early 90s to like the 97 era, like in that whole period of time. And there's cases like still open, and they're off burning files. Like there's so much, oh, there's so much with that, dude, that's so bad. And so they don't want to be held accountable for it. And then there's like a tank of crimes where they didn't arrest anyone. So my case is mostly involved with that stuff where they falsified like the actual reports, and then they wrote something else, and then they didn't arrest people. So that there was like felonies and this stuff, and they would just like just do that. And so that was actually like when I started looking into that. That's when the fucking government goes and puts this thing out and goes, oh, these were accidents. They were accidents. They just misfiled and stuff. Da, 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 da. I'm like, there ain't no fucking accidents here. They literally did it while they were on the scene. I mean, there was the attitudes there and everything. But what happened was is they were getting like promotions and shit, and so they were profiting off it in a way where the less that they had, they were getting perks and shit for it. So nobody's gonna have the desire to continually arrest people, that if the least that they could, and it's weird because they have this like quota thing, right? But the lead on major crimes, or even the misdemeanors and stuff, that they were getting something from it, from doing that. So and then nobody got in trouble for it. They just kind of presented that information to the public, and then just kind of like, yeah, misconduct happened. Like the DOJ put out a thing. I still can't find that damn page. Like I brought it up before, but it said something like, yeah, misconduct happens. Just be aware of it. And then I think they did something like to beware of white supremacist cops and like something else. But they just put like a notice out, like to the public, like, okay, so what are you gonna do about it? Like, why even put it out there if you guys are gonna do absolutely nothing about it? So if you know what's going on, why would you tell somebody to deal with it locally when it could be your whole fucking state? Like our state actually has a major issue on a million topics, that you would not tell a victim in that type of crime, that type of thing, that type of targeting, that you should go deal with it locally. I mean, you were basically inside of a cult. I mean, it's like, what the hell? Who do you think is going to do something about it? They're not going to do anything about it. They were really pissed at me looking into my own case, like that they hid from the public, that I cannot pull it. Like they owe me money. Like they legitimately owe me a shit tank of money right now, and we're trying to get it. And they will not give me my paperwork. I have the copies, but the thing is, they will not tell me who that person was that signed that off and put that little pigeon scratching on it, right? So we're dealing with a lot of that. And so that is all government. That's all government stuff. Anything that you're dealing with, the anything with the city, that's government stuff. Ticket stuff, cop stuff. The justice system, all that's government stuff. The social services, that's government stuff. There's certain housing things, that's government stuff. Like anything, any of those, there's like so many different sections of it that it's like when some people just kind of use the word because they're just like conspiracists and like deep state, whatever. No, I mean, the government is huge. Like, there's different portions of it and different people that work in different areas of it, and they have all abused their positions, like all of them. I cannot name one person that has not abused their position where they were working within government. So even my family, they completely abused their positions working through the government. So that's why I'm like, but people don't want to hear stories from the victims of that. Like, they don't want to hear, like, those people actually abuse their own damn kids. Like, it's like, oh my god, it's like shattering my world of Santa. Like, we can't hear this story because it's just too much for us to take in. It's like, no, that's reality, and they abuse their position. They get away with it because they can get protected by the government by not getting in trouble for it. And that's what they do, and they protect their own. I'm just here to tell you the cold hard facts because I'm a kid of it. So I'm just being very forward about what has been going on, like, all these years since I was a kid, and the amount of time that a cop comes in the house and is like, wants to protect my family, and lets them fucking abuse me and like leaves me there. Oh, I don't think you'd be happy about this. And I'm all injured and shit, and like nobody's even saying that they didn't hurt me. Like, there was not even anybody going, oh, I didn't do it. It was just, we don't think he's gonna be happy about that. So, and then they just leave. That's how they treat our stuff. So there's no perks in that. There's absolutely no perks in that. And then the other worst part of it is, and I've repeated this over and over because most average people don't know this, is that we cannot talk to any entity that is paid through government. Like, I can't call and complain, like, my government dad, or like, my government boyfriend, my law enforcement, whatever, is attacking me, or I had domestic violence with them. They cannot take my call. That's pretty fucked, dude. That's pretty fucked. And I didn't even know that was even occurring up until I had to try to use one of those things before. When was it? Last year, when I had a call on something, I was like, you know what, we need to talk about this one thing that's been going on. And they were like, oh, we can't, you have to call the police. I'm like, why would I call my predator to fucking have a counseling session? Or, you know how, like, you talk to people on the phone? So they're not allowed to. And I go, oh, because you're paid for by them, and you report information that's supposed to be private, that people have been calling to you guys, to them. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. I didn't even know that was going on. So I'm telling people, these numbers that you're telling people to call are not safe. So, why people would not believe that? There's really no reason not to believe that, because that's what happened to me, and I called several of them. So they are paid for by them, and so they're not allowed to take any calls like that from us. And so that also opened the information, that your information is going to them, like, just randomly going to them. They're sifting through it. God knows what they're doing. They may be sitting there going, oh yeah, we're doing it for study purposes to see how we can better do whatever with this. It's like, yeah. And then if those are people that are targeting you, they have all your information. So whatever. But yeah, that is another area of a problem. And there was only like one agency, like literally one agency I seen where they actually take calls for victims of law enforcement, right? So like, you could, like, if you had a boyfriend in law enforcement, then you can actually call there. But it was like in Chicago. It wasn't even here in LA or any, like, anywhere. There's almost nothing under that. I mean, it would probably take some deep digging to find anything like that. Um, my mom, I mean, the only thing my mom did, I know she went to a private therapist, and private therapists for stuff like that still can't, like, I don't know. That whole situation was weird. I just, growing up with that, because they were like all abusing each other and shit, and then we had to go to this like therapist, and the therapist is like trying to blame me for my parents' fucking divorce. Like, they were like, they said that you're a huge reason why they don't get along. And I'm like, what? Like, I have nothing to do with their fucking problems. He's like an alcoholic, and she went off cheating on my dad or something. And it's like, yeah, like, I have like literally nothing, and I'm a little kid, and I don't even know what the fuck is going on here. Like, some therapists actually said this to me. So I was like, probably about 10 or 11, and I'm just like, oh yeah, this is great. This is all I need. And then my uncle tells me later that my mom had some sort of weird relationship with one of her therapists, and I'm like, I don't think that wasn't the one that said it though. The one that said it was a woman, a damn fucking woman, dude. But I don't know. Somebody she was, I don't know all that shit. But the whole thing was weird, and the therapy back then was so terrible. I just remember sitting there. I was like, yeah, he's been like abusing me, and then like nobody's even talking about it, and we're like in the same room. Like you're gonna sit there and be like, yeah, he gets all drunk, and then he gets like really mad. You know what I mean? Like you're not gonna sit in a room with all of them and tell a therapist that. If he wasn't in the room, maybe. But it was like the most ridiculous thing that we ever went through. And then, of course, that didn't work. And then ended up getting a divorce anyway. And I was very happy about that. So then, the rest of this thing here, so we don't go way, way off, this white slavery thing, right? So now we're in this era of like, everybody's trying to go after like human trafficking pedophiles. It's just like, okay, I don't know how this happens, but you'll bring up like a serious topic, right? So, and then there's these people that go to the far extreme of the topic, and now we're hunting monsters and weird shit like that, and things that don't even happen the way that people are saying they happen. And, victims and me actually an eyewitness to stuff like this. That I'm like, that's not how it even goes, though. It doesn't even go like that, so I don't even know where people are coming up with this. This is the government, though. See, the government has to make shit up so they can have an ulterior motive to target women. They had been targeting all these adult jobs and everything for eons. Like, that's not even like a new thing. And so I guess for them, they figured, oh, well, the fundamentalists in our country will fucking believe anything. So we're going to tell them we're going after these, like, predator two kids and what victims. Like, they're all victims. So we need to go after them. And so they're so dumb that they start cheering it on, and then they're for things that are literally, like, going to murder people. Like, literally going to murder people. And I'm just like, okay. First of all, their definition of this human trafficking thing is not even correct. And that's government. So government's a bunch of morons, and so they have this down there. And I kept continually told them, I go, you didn't even use the fucking term. I don't know when the term came about. I guess it came around earlier than I thought it did, but nobody used the term. And until like, fuck, after I even reported stuff way back in early 2000s, so they didn't use it until probably the last 10 years. um but the so I guess before they used to call it white slavery, and I was like, white slavery? I haven't heard no damn white slavery. But they used to call it white slavery because it says the fear that virginal white girls would be snatched and sold into the sex trade, and the same people were silent about sexual abuse when it happened to women of color and immigrants. Oh no, they were silent about sexual abuse on anyone. Like, that's the other thing. Like, I don't know why people have this sort of thinking that, you know, your daddy's gonna save you in a situation like this because he would beat his ass. And then in reality, and we got into this thing with some girl on Twitter about it too. She's like, my daddy saved me from everything. Maybe your dad sucks, but my daddy made me. And I'm just like, girl, you need to shut the fuck up. And you're missing the point. I was like, no matter what, most people will sit there and say, I'm gonna do this and that if anybody ever did this to my daughter. And then in reality, when it happens, and the dad's kind of like, they'll either blame you or they don't do anything. So those are the two things that happen. It always kind of gets brushed under the rug. And so there's been so many people that came out, like, we're talking about basically like women are probably the biggest problem in all this, actually, over any men, because men can't like do things unless women are like okaying it, and they also raise them. So you have two double whammies there going on. It's like, well, you raise them to do that, and then the way you speak is self-hatred, because then it just comes right back on us and everything you're teaching your kids and everything, and that women somehow are bad if they do this, and that
there's this hierarchy thing, which, yeah, it's true, there's a hierarchy in it, but I know that people also have stances on labeling themselves, right? So there's different stances on that. But we'll go into that later. But anyway, so the white slavery thing, um, let's see, Panic had kind of ruined any hope, I guess, for any sort of like legalization of, women's work. So we call it women's work because it's basically women's jobs. It's a job that mostly women do. There are men in that field. Um, but again, most of those people fall into those minority groups, and they're the people that they consider everybody evil. So therefore, all these people are bad, and they teach their kids very young to hate groups of people. So I had pointed out with the Assemblies of God, oh, I went off on them. I hate them, dude. They're just a cult. And so when I was younger, they showed us these videos and told us to hate all these people, right? And then as I got older, I ended up working with them and I met them and they were fucking great people. So I'm like, oh, that's funny, dude. So you literally put this in my head. And I could have sat there and been just completely an idiot about it all. And I could have been like, I hate them because they're evil, because the Assemblies of God told me that. But they're basically teaching them at very young ages to hate. And these are things that us as when we were children and we were in churches that hopefully you grow a brain at some point and you get out of that, and then you try to fix those issues because they should have never happened to begin with. But there are just some people that are brain dead and they just keep this shit in their head and they continually keep repeating shit that makes no sense. It's like, why are you hating on a group of people? Oh, because it's evil. I'm like, can you point it out where it's evil? Who the fuck is evil? Do you even know them? No. You know what I mean? It's like, but nobody questions it. So, a lot of us who had left out of that church abuse shit um, can clearly see what the hell happened here. Um, I didn't run around with that whole hate thing, but I know that there was certain topics that I was very ignorant about just because of the fact that there was like a lack actually of any discussion on stuff. So I just kind of like went by whatever, and then I never had a really strong stance on anything up until more recent. I don't know. I don't even know if I have a really strong stance on anything right now. It depends. Like, I'm always open for discussions on topics because you can always be wrong, right? The one thing that with any type of policy or any type of thing that goes through, you always have to make sure that it doesn't harm the most vulnerable in society. Like, that should always be number one. Like, if it's something that's going to take out those people, then you should never even vote for it. Now, why Bernie did what he did, I cannot. I lost my shit over that. I don't even understand that. That's just one of those things that I'm just gonna. I don't even want to think about it right now. It's so. Just. Ugh. So, okay, so the rest of this. So then there's another portion of this. So, um, 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 um. Yeah, everything has to do with sex. Like, everything, all these topics have to do with fundamentalists. So it has to do with Christianity stuff. It has to do with all the stuff that shouldn't even be mixed in with our politics. Why is this mixed in with our politics? That should not be going on. Your personal fucking bullshit should not be mixed in with politics. And there's supposed to be a separation between church and state. People's views on sex is a religious one. I consider them a bunch of perverts because they want to sit there and practice the fetish of like having abstinence and holding themselves back until they rape somebody without consent. But that's their bullshit. And you know what? It's like nobody's stopping them in their private life to not do what they think that do what they think that is against their bullshit. But they should never ever ever have the right to sit there and try to legislate something that has anything to do with anybody's fucking sex life. Now we have a guy in Anchorage, Alaska who's trying to pass off some bill saying you can't teach sex education that includes this, that, and the other, and contraceptives, but you have to number one, teach abstinence. And it's like their state actually has like one of the top like rape statistics besides like Utah. And it's like, yeah, gee, that didn't work out very well for you, did it? Like there's a reason why these things are together, you know? Um, but that's right now. I don't know if that's going to pass. I would feel really bad if that passed, but you know, it just depends on where you're at, because some states are just really, really low IQ. So, okay, so then the part two to this is the American plan in World War One. So this really goes back far. I really need to get the book because I don't know exactly to as early as it was when government was targeting women. Um, and then let me skim this for a second because I got to remember what it read. Yeah, so we're still dealing with like the segregation periods, and they were forcing, oh my god, so they were forcing all these medical treatments, right? So they were forcing like arsenic and injections, which could literally kill you, and different types of things. And then they were getting sick, losing their teeth, and then somebody was fighting against them. And then yeah, and then the old hospitals were turned into detention centers, women's prisons being overcrowded. So, like right now, what they're doing is because they put this other thing, the SESTA thing, in, they're letting all these men out, right? And then they're gonna start like upping, they're targeting women. Like they've been targeting women, but they're gonna now have more legal power, I guess, to be able to just throw them all in prison. So that we're talking about how we're actually about to create like these concentration camp basically for women, because what how they wrote this bullshit up made it where they could just literally just arrest you because they think that you're doing something, versus before it was harassment. So now they're trying to be like, oh no, we're not harassing, we have a probable cause to go into your sex life. Like that's what they're doing. And then let's see, prison under sex, yeah, and then it goes into the whole like, wait, I don't know. But anyway, there's three parts of this, so I'm not going to go into any more of it. But do read that, and then I know I was gonna go back onto something I was talking about. The doctors, the feminists, something about the feminists. Oh, so the feminists now have been their worst enemy. Like, I mean, they've been women's worst enemy here, and I don't care what anybody says. The original movement, the first part of the movement, was very good. It lost its way during the second wave. The time period that when Gloria did her bullshit with Playboy and all this other stuff, that's where shit got fucked. And they just turned into total female supremacists. And yes, that is a thing. And I don't know why people don't identify that as a thing. It is a thing. Like and same with the male supremacists, which is what we deal with now. And these are the two far extremes of things, and there are people that believe in full on female domination. There are men that believe in full on male domination. Now, is there anything particularly wrong with an individual thinking like that? No. It is when a whole country thinks that way, then it becomes a very imbalanced and abusive environment. So you don't want either one of these things going on in a majority. And so I would not teach women that they all have to be these like total like fucking, Nazi bitch, like, that, because that's not everybody's nature. And so they had left out, like I said, they had left out like conservative women in this conversation. Like they don't think that you could be any type of woman if you were submissive to some guy or something like that. Like personally, would I know? But personally, I'm not them, so I should not give a fuck about what somebody else does. So if they want to do that, then they can do that. The problem is when other people overstep other people's boundaries, and they continually try to force you to be something you're not. And we don't want to, we can't go there. We can't go there. And that's what the feminist movement was trying to do there. And like I said, I missed some of that because I identified with the being in charge type of thing. Because it's like I am a businesswoman. I try to go do my thing, and I believe in trying to empower yourself in some way, but you don't need to. Does everybody need to do that? No. Nobody. That's just my thing. Like, that's not something. Nobody. You could sit there and be on the fucking couch for the rest of your life for all I care. You know what I mean? Some people may have to. Maybe they're disabled. Maybe they can only do so much in this life. You know what I mean? It's like this type of, it's just over the top. Like it went somewhere else. And I don't follow shit like the Bible, but there are a tank of women that do that were just so fucking into it. And then they'd sit there and then they started like hating on each other. So they kept hating on each other, calling each other whores and shit, and then fucking trying to understand like why if you don't like legalize like sex workers or any type of thing like that, that it's actually harming you, because now you're always going to be a fucking target and they're going to always use that to degrade you. So they don't understand that concept at all. And I'm like, these are the women that are speaking for us? No. Like, they're sitting there going out of their way to like target groups of people and then calling them victims. Like, they're sitting there gaslighting other women, calling them victims when they're sitting, the women are like, no, we actually like enjoy doing this. This is our fucking job. And then they're like, oh, we're for equality in work, but we're going to go after your jobs because we personally feel like a Christian fundamentalist. And they basically say the same language. They are saying the same language. You must listen to this, because I, for whatever reason, didn't hear all that, like, this kind of fucking extreme shit, because there's no way in fuck I would have ever supported any of them at any time ever, like, ever. But they're literally saying the same thing together in unison, and they're totally fine with being called whores, because basically they consider other people that who actually choose to do things like that, and then they bitch about getting that hate back. I'm like, no, you're always going to be degraded because you're degrading others doing that, and you should be sitting there actually being pro the most vulnerable in society. You should be pro trying to protect them, and protecting them is not targeting them. Protecting them is actually giving them more power. So you want to protect anybody, you need to give them more power. You don't remove power. So there's just no logic to what these people are trying to do. And well, there's logic in it with the guys doing it, because of course they do not want any type of women to be even fucking independent. And so they go and target all the women's jobs. There's no male jobs that are targeted in this way. None. None at all. And women should be okay with this. I don't give a fuck what you think about what other people do. But you should never be okay with a government, a corrupt fucking government, targeting your gender on any fucking level. On any level. And it's like, at least black people have it together where they're like, fuck this shit. And they stick together. White women are a bunch of trash, dude. Like, you just read the stuff. I swear. It's like, they will not protect you. And then they'll make it a thing where it's like, we're rich and white and we act a certain way. So, we don't like the way you talk, because we're more classy. So you gotta listen to us, because we somehow know more than you. It's like, no, you're a fucking dumbass. Like, I am not supporting any of these fucking dumbass women. None of them. And I don't even want the tag feminists on me right now, because they identify with Christian fundamentalists. We are not there. And it's not a small group. It is a huge group of them, and I've had to work with the tank of them too, and we've got into that whole discussion. And just the fucking self-hatred, and that's why they come for you the way that they do. And they don't realize what they're doing, they just do it. And it's like, at some point, you're gonna have to figure out that you're the one shooting yourself in the foot. And you know what? At this point, it is not even guys' problems. I mean, it is solely women's own damn fucking problems. They can get mad about it, but it's true. Like, you created that, you created them, you created how you fucking treat other women. So no, you're the damn fucking problem. And you should fucking deal with it. And it's like, I'm not gonna sit there and be like, oh, guys are like 100% of the problem. It's like, no, because it's actually not true. In all the cases that where I tried to even report stuff, it would be the damn woman fucking degrading me as a victim. What is that about? So no, that is women's problems, and there needs to be more on that, because that it comes out just, oh, I can't even get into this part of it today, because it's just like, it makes me so mad. And it's like, no matter what you say, and then it's always fueled by some religious bullshit. So then you can't even like have a discussion. It's like, we think this is evil or this is bad, so this. And it's like, but we're not even having a logical discussion here. Why are you attacking yourself? Why are you attacking other women? Why are you taking away other women's jobs? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Go punch yourself in the face. Like, seriously. Like, that's what you're doing. That's what you're doing. And you could sit there and tell them. They don't listen to us. They don't listen to, look, you just did this. This just fucking destroyed my life. They don't give a fuck. They're sitting there in fucking mansions. They don't give a shit about you. They don't give a damn about you at all. So, you know what? We don't care about their burnt houses. Fuck their burned houses. We don't give a fuck about their burned houses. They can go cry to somebody else, because they didn't give a shit about you when they threw you in the street.